What's up, guys? Duke for the Intimacy Liberation Army here. I'm here in my dinosaur onesie because I went to trivia at the local bar, and our team, we won third place. Next week, it's going to be first place. Life. I didn't know that Andrew Jackson was called Old Hickory, but I do now. Pour one on the ground for the dead homie Alex Trebek, by the way, who helps me win trivia every week, even though he's no longer with us. Today we're going to talk about building an emotional landscape to motivate other people to do things. All right, so I get a call from one of my students. He's a super advanced guy who has gotten into the art and funness of teaching his girlfriend how to pick up tertiary partners for their playtime and emotional needs. He was asking how to motivate the girlfriend, how to approach and create new interactions that they could then blossom into whatever the hell they were looking for. He went through a couple of things that we had done in workshops in the past with entire large groups of men, people who thought really logically, and they were sort of reward-based, kind of Pavlovian-style systems. So we were doing a bunch of stuff with the reward-based Pavlovian-style systems. You know, like, give us a whole bunch of money and then we'll pay you back when you do the things that you said you were going to do. He was going into the guilt tripping for being people of integrity, all the stuff that we used for really hard, high ticket, like like engineering minded men in those camps, because he was one of those people. And I was like, no, that's just not gonna work out. The person that you are trying to teach here and motivate to move towards a different version of themselves operates a little bit differently than you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking me this question in the first place. So I gave him a system that I use for female clients and some of the more high chaos energy men that I work with, the guys who are more artistic and like empathic than the standard kind of pickup artist flair of guys that come in kind of ego driven and logical. The first thing you got to do is to get them to imagine the end goal in an emotional way. So you can kind of lead them through a future projection that will say, okay, what are you trying to get out of this thing feelings-wise? So, for instance, in this guy's case, he's trying to get his girl to generate a new relationship with another girl. And I said, okay, well, you're not going to be like, oh, do 15 approaches and you get your money, or approach 20 different girls and then you're going to feel guilty if you don't do it because you said you were going to do it and your integrity is at risk or whatever. All that stuff is bullshit for people who are more empathic or more chaos energy. A lot of the bisexual people that I've worked with are not really into the conquest of sex for ego reasons. They're not into the conquest of intimacy for intimacy reasons or emotional fulfillment reasons. They look at the time spent with a new partner as more of a recreational or a fun activity than it is a foundation for their human connection methods, right? So they like to categorize their playmates and their partners into different camps, some teams that meet the emotional needs and some that meet the recreational needs, right? And while that's kind of been a trope that has carried on from society, it's like, oh, there's the marriage type, the mothering type, and then there's the girl that I just want to fuck. Like, it's kind of a flat and naive way to look at it. Although it's very useful to make sure you categorize things correctly and then you communicate that well. So if I meet somebody new and I want to just kind of explore and play rather than promise things that are deeper or more involved or more intimate, then if I state that in the first place and everybody kind of agrees in the beginning that that's with the phase that we're at right now, then nobody gets their feelings hurt, their expectations aren't let down, etc. So it's really useful to be aware of that and then also explain it well. Otherwise, people get the feelings hurt. I told him you got to elicit the emotional responses they're looking for at the end. Like I said, a lot of the bisexual people that we work with, in their early dating lives, like the initial few hours that you spend with somebody, and in their sort of club life in the sex world, is driven at recreation. It's like for the same reason you go out and you see the musical emotional experience of a concert. It's more than just the nostalgic reason you like the music. It's also the experience of the concert itself. It's the experience of the new discovery in that space within the familiarity of safety. It's important to elicit the actual emotional responses they're looking for through an ideal interaction. You guys have done exercises with me in the past few videos about running through yourself through an ideal and in your mental space, and then trying to pinpoint what you're looking for emotionally out of that space. Because then once you have an understanding of where your end goal is at, then you can sort of anchor that state and be able to marshal the resources that state is attached to, and B, you can be clear in your communication so that when you're dealing with another human being, that you're not putting up pretenses or being a liar or whatever, right? In order to motivate a more empathic or chaos energy type person, we used to say, like from the David Data concepts, is like the masculine energy is more solidarity driven, like a tree, and then the feminine energy is more chaos driven, like the storm or the wind, right? Unfortunately, I have found by coaching a whole bunch of men that masculinity isn't really that way. Like, it's not a biological or kind of rooted thing. It's more sociologically influenced, and we have models that we have used to build that in us. And although all of us have come out in a particular way, like I'm very solidarity driven with a lot of chaos energy for my exploration phases, but I'm not a typically Dadian feminine energy guy. I'm much more masculine, so I should be taking more leadership and all that other stuff, right? We don't really use the masculine feminine characterization of it anymore because it's too simplistic, because we always have a balance of that kind of energy. So renaming this into some more solidarity, chaos, security, exploration, those kinds of diametrically opposed viewpoints have a more useful application here. Back to the strategy. So you want to elicit the end goal emotionally. And sometimes when you do that, if you're a more ordered, solidarity driven person and they're a more chaos driven, exploration driven person, you're going to have an issue with making sense out of their emotional spectrum, and they're going to have more of a difficult time making sense out of your limited order. There's not a lot of diversity in structured step-by-step approach. So you have to be able to give and take in that space so that you can kind of learn where they are coming from and what they're motivated by. So you'll elicit this by asking questions about their desired end goal. And if they say, oh yeah, no, well, I want to find a new relationship and but why? But why? That's your magic question. You're trying to figure out what they're going to get out of it internally. And sometimes it really is as simple, and you can judge this if you want, but sometimes it really is as simple as, I want to have the story for later so that I can tell people and increase my status or my significance in their eyes. Sometimes they don't even want to have an experience that's out of the norm or avant-garde, but they want to be seen as someone who is out of the norm and avant-garde. So they like to anchor their lives with those experiences. I'm very much like that. It's like, in general, I don't need much. Sort of stoic on the emotional side. I definitely like to explore. I like to have the breadth of experience. So I'll do things that I'm not particularly looking for from a, one-step result ideal mindset, and just so that I can get the fringes of the experience and expand my experiential landscape. Because I like to have a lot of experience to draw upon, both in the coaching field and in the nostalgic field. I like to look back and be like, oh yeah, I've accomplished this. I've done this. I've experienced that. I didn't like it, but I experienced that. Part of my personal identity is being well-rounded. It's being free to make as much risk behavior as I can while still maintaining an essence of safety. Back to the strategy. We're going into their emotional space and trying to figure out why they want to accomplish this certain goal. Because the goal is just sort of a guidepost to the person that you have to be in order to participate comfortably in that space. If you can get out of them what their emotional state that they desire to be in, you can lead them back into that emotional state in the moment. So rather than setting up a plan and being like, look, you do this, 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 and this, and then you get this result, like you would if you're a more ordered, solidarity-driven person, you elicit that emotional state, you figure out exactly what they want. Then when you're in the situation itself, like in this guy's case, he'd be at a restaurant where they're meeting new people. You can bring that emotional state up. That will bring them into a place where they can get to the resources in their mind and their mental space to employ in that way. When they're kind of sitting down and shut down being logical, they're not able to access the exploration-driven, charismatic side of themselves that would be crucial in actually accomplishing the goals that they need to accomplish. I used to date this girl. She had a nostalgic connection with a beach bonfire. She had a number of intimate experiences by bringing people to the beach, and she would, there'd be a bonfire, and it's isolated from everybody else, so there was an element of safety, being able to take risk in an intimate setting, but then generating a strong human connection, even in the moment, with somebody there. Her kind of process to creating this moment over and over again, to sort of reliably creating this thing, is to invite people out to go do this thing, and people who are vibing with that energy would be like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and then they go out and they would have a great time. It's sort of her filter mechanism for finding people that could operate in her space and in her same mindset. And so after I talked to her at great length about the nostalgia of that stuff, and we were looking for a tandem hunting type of situation, I was like, look, now I know kind of what gets her to the headspace of that freedom and that exploration, right? So when we went out and she's like, oh, I don't know, I'm feeling shy tonight or whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, no problem, we'll just hang out. And so we'll hang out, and then there's a girl who comes by and she gives her little signals or whatever, and I'm like, she looks like a bonfire type. And this girl would be like, yeah, no, I think you're right. And then because her mind was connected to those words, right, we elicited those things, she would instantly go into the space in her head where she was able to access the resources or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to her. If she's cool, I'll bring her to meet you. So we go talk, come back, and then they just vibe real quick because she's already in the emotional headspace that she can access all of those internal things and give off those right vibes for that type of scenario. She's already feeling that way. And that's a much more effective way of motivating her to get to work, so to speak, in the dating game, because all you had to do is just bring up something that she had already agreed was a great thing, and she would access that part of herself and then make her evaluations from there. Sometimes that didn't work out, and sometimes it definitely did. So that's my thoughts for the day. Your mission today is to pick one person you'd like to influence into this space that you would identify as more of a chaos energy, more of a high feminine energy, more of an empath energy type of person. And then you're going to figure out a way to elicit the desired end state from whatever you're looking to do, right? So if you're looking like this guy was, to kind of tandem hunt with a partner, if you're looking to get them to be more social, or if you're looking whatever, I'm not saying you can ever change anybody's opinions or change their mind in the long term, but if you guys are vibing on the same level, you can communicate with them much more effectively by pulling up these emotional states rather than try to go all logical about it and explain the cost-benefit ratios and all that, right? So write down a person that you think is more empathic or more chaos-driven, and then figure out a way to elicit, like ask them why they want to end up with this desired end goal, and then listen to their stories. And they'll probably tell you from 4 or 5 different angles what they would like to feel out of the end of the thing. And then you'll be armed with the knowledge so that later on you can bring those things up. It'd be more effective than just listing out, pluses and minuses of things. That's my thoughts today. And today I'm going to leave with the punch outro. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, stay awesome.
But